Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Chris Richardson, President, General Counsel of BDV Solutions, co-founder of Argo. I'm here today in the new year of 2026. Happy New Year, everybody, with Leon Rodriguez, who's a partner at Seyfarth Shaw and the former director for USCIS. And we're going to set off and talk about 2026, what our expectations are, and get Leon's perspectives on what he thinks things are going, or where he thinks things are going. It's really, really good to see you, former director. How are you?
Great to see you, Chris, Mr. Richardson. Always glad to be working with you.
You as well. You as well. So 2025 was an interesting year in immigration, to say the least. What do you expect to be the big things in 2026? Given what's happened in 2025, where do you see us going in 2026?
Yeah, I think the administration has been proceeding under with some exceptions that are worth our talking about, but it has been proceeding with sort of the general view that the immigration system, until the administration took office in January of 2025, that it lacked integrity. That people were getting benefits for which they were not entitled, that people were in the U.S. unlawfully, that people who maybe had criminal histories or posed national security threats were being allowed in the United States when they should not have been. And so, there's been a very focused effort within USCIS, but also within other immigration agencies, to really clamp down on various aspects of the immigration system. The most dramatic of these, which is probably not particularly relevant to our audience today, are the very dramatic efforts to detain and ultimately deport people who are in the U.S. without authorization. But it's also included, for example, a lot of efforts to really make it a lot harder for people seeking H-1B non-immigrant visas, for them to be able to attain those visas, or for employers to be able to hire and petition on behalf of those people. And examples of that are the requirement that there be an upfront payment of $100,000 by the employer in order for that person to get a visa if they're consular processing their case. The waiving of the lottery position for those individuals in favor of people at the higher wage levels. And so this, is one of the sort of major pathways for people in the employment sphere to get visas to the U.S. And that's something where USCIS in particular is really looking to narrow that pathway. So those are examples, sort of what the general tempo is. I know we're going to talk about EB-3 other workers a little bit in this discussion, but that's sort of the general idea of what's going on and the general approach that the administration is taking.
And, there's a travel ban now on the 39 countries. We had the public charge rule that came out last year as well. Let's start with the travel ban. Do you foresee that travel ban potentially being expanded? And also, what do you think it's the pause that's been put on the specific issuances of the cases? Do you think that that's going to stand up in court?
I think because the president has been relying on what is pretty broad power that he gets to take action to stop immigration that the president has determined is against the interest of the U.S. I actually do think it's going to stand up in court in the end. I think the challenges are going to be strategic, and they're going to be in particular federal districts, New York, San Francisco, Boston, places where the people challenging them can expect a friendly hearing. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these cases, the administration will take it all the way to the Supreme Court, and so far, for the most part, the Supreme
Mm-hmm.
Court has been very friendly
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
the administration in those cases.
So you think there'll be some fits and starts, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the travel bans and the ability of USCIS to halt the actual processing of cases, you think that that's going to hold up in court?
I think that is going to hold up in court. I think the question is, will there be a point, will there come a point where the USCIS and the other immigration agencies will loosen the reins somewhat on both those adjudication pauses and those travel bans. And I think there are going to be a number of pressures on them. One of the big ones is the fact that the World Cup's going to be in the United States. I forget exactly when, but sometime in the next couple of years. And that there has already been concern that that's a bad look in terms of people who want to come to the United States, are willing to pay a lot of money to come to the United States. So that's going to create some pressure that will extend well beyond the World Cup to perhaps loosen the reins. But that's not necessarily going to happen tomorrow. That's something that could happen months or maybe even a year or more from now.
No, that makes sense. And in terms of the travel ban and the impact on, the 39 countries, how do you think that impacts the visa bulletin and the rest of the world? So there's a lot of talk going around that, the travel bans and impact, the 39 countries is going to make it harder for USCIS and the State Department to issue all the visa numbers that they would like to. And that, in fact, we may even see a little bit of a rollover of the family-based cases next year into the employment base, because they're probably not going to be able to issue, or maybe they can, I don't know. But what do you think of that? Because back when the original travel ban, when you're talking about 5, 6, 7 countries or 8 countries, however many it was the first time around, I can't see that having much of an impact. But 39 countries seems to be like, that's not a small number. Especially Nigeria, which has a huge immigrant population, and there's a huge number in the immigration pipeline.
Yeah, and I think the question, it's really almost more of a country by country question and a category by category question. So, for example, you gave Nigeria is a great example. That is a country that does have not significant representation in our employment base, especially in the sciences. There is significant Nigerian representation. Similarly, significant Iranian representation in the employment-based numbers. So, preventing those people from coming in, that really could dilute the availability. Rather the utilization.
The
utilization.
Yeah.
So indeed, it might create the situation where there's actually shockingly excess, because that's not generally a problem that we have. So it could have that.
So it's that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, with unfortunate with all these travel bans, that might happen. What do you think? Do you think there'll be more travel? I mean, it's really hard to know, right? Anybody's guess. But do you think there'll be more travel bans, less travel bans, a change of travel bans, or do you think there's going to be a focus on other things?
Yes, I think it's all possible. I think a lot of it is situational. It'll depend on, because remember, a lot of these things happen very reactively. So that one horrific shooting here in D.C., one National Guard member killed, the other one seriously wounded. The individual was here on, I think in that case, was here on humanitarian parole. And all of a sudden that leads to a big expansion of the travel bans well beyond Afghanistan, which is where that particular individual had come from, well beyond the category in which he was here. And so, we don't know the either incidents that may happen that will motivate the administration to create a further expansion, a further clampdown. And on the other hand, there are also going to be pressures to start kind of easing these, because it does affect, in particular, it affects the economy.
And what do you think will be like the the big, well, I'm sure you still talk to a lot of folks at USCIS. You have a lot of contacts still at USCIS. Do you anticipate there being improvements in processing? Do you anticipate them looking at ways to make the processing better, simpler? I know, they've started recently accepting, they got rid of paper checks now, and you have to submit, quote unquote electronic checks.
Yeah.
They're looking at moving the I-140 to be something that would be electronic and online. Do you anticipate there'll be other or further processing improvements that make the process itself better?
Yeah, no, I do think so. So in a lot, it's really going to depend. Again, it's going to go back to the economy and also particular sectors of the economy that are important for President Trump. And so one example, not directly related to our discussion today, is the process for agricultural non-immigrant visas, the H-2A visas, has been significantly simplified in the last few months to permit sort of a hybrid of electronic and paper filing. That's going to make it a lot easier, and that's because that's an important constituency for the president. That's a sector that's really struggling with employment. It's a sector that has a high risk of illegal labor, and there's an incentive to create legal pathways there. So that's somewhere they're doing something different, more efficient, and that there may be similar improvements in other categories. Right. However, the other part of it is that they're going to get stricter. So I think the same thing we saw in Trump 1, we can expect to see again. More requests for evidence, quicker to deny cases. I think that's going to be part of the scenario as well, and that a lot of that stuff is going to slow things down. More interviews. These are things that will actually make the process less efficient.
So you think it's going to be a mixture of both things?
Yes, for sure, a mixture.
And do you believe that? Like, what do you think it's going to take for some of these countries to get off of the travel ban list? Like, do they need to make deals, make arrangements, or is the immigration completely separated from the actual process itself?
Yeah. So if you look at the travel ban, these are actually fairly transparent criteria that the administration was applying to get you onto the travel ban and to get you off the travel ban. And so there's really two issues, which is a country's willingness to accept its nationals back if they are deported from the United States. There have been countries that are, sort of slow to take their people back if they're, ordered to depart or removed from the United States. And two, their ability to provide reliable data to the United States about those individuals' criminal history and other data that the U.S. government might want. So those are both fixable things. Those are changes that countries could make. They may not be cheap for those countries to make, but it's possible. And so I think you'll see countries making real efforts to improve their systems so that they meet the administration standards in order to get off of the travel ban.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be something that a lot of these countries are going to focus on. Let's get into a couple of questions. Let's see, ones that we can answer at least. So someone asked, multiple labor certificate, and I know you're not the former DOL director, but we can ask about DOL too, right? Once upon a time, you could file multiple LCs, you could file multiple I-140s, but this person is asking why we're seeing more scrutiny or administrative processing doing those things. I don't think I've seen much in the way of more scrutiny with multiple LCs filed or multiple I-140s filed. Maybe you have, I don't know, but I have not actually seen more scrutiny than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen that either. This may be related to the same thing that resulted in the limit and the further scrutiny on lottery filings with USCIS, which was,
Mm.
essentially fraudulent filings of multiple
I see. I see. I
LC
see.
applications in order to either dilute the pool or to improve a
Mm-hmm.
particular individual's chances or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
even in cases where there's not actually a bona fide job offer for that individual. So
Yeah.
maybe it's something like that, but I
I
don't know.
haven't seen it. What do you think of the idea? And this is something I've thought about. I think we've talked about this before, but a large chunk of the visa bulletin is backed up with people who have multiple filings, right? There are people there's no limit to the amount of filings that you can have. I doubt the government has much insight into or even care to find out, who's filed as many cases as what. Um, what do you think of the idea of just going through and just tapping people on the shoulder and being like, hey, listen, you are blocking up the visa bulletin. Pick one. Pick a visa. Just pick a visa, and let us remove this other one so that you can, take up, because you're taking up space from people, or even the idea, because a ton of people applied for EB-3 Unskilled in 2015, 2016. Those cases were blocked up for years. And I suspect a lot of those people have already moved on with their lives and want to do something else, right?
Yeah.
In theory, obviously, like, you're supposed to check in and say, hey, I'm still interested in the case. But in practice, that doesn't really, like, they don't really, I doubt they really do much of anything in terms of actually withdrawing cases. What do you think of that idea of one, should people be able to file multiple, which I think that they should, but maybe at some point they should have to pick one, because it really does increase the backlog, or at least it contributes to the backlog.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense, because it does slow down the system to have multiple, essentially identical applications in there, only, just to improve your odds. So yeah, I don't see a problem with that approach. I don't see that there would be any injustice or any unfairness to these applicants if you were to do that.
Yeah, it's something that I know that our government relations team has been asking about and pushing for, is this notion that if you want to help the backlog, it's probably a good idea to go out and figure out who actually still wants to do a case, if anybody's still around, if they can pick one case, or putting that effort into it. But that would take like a lot of money and a lot of time. And I just don't think the government really, they're not feeling it. So someone asked, how long does it take for the I-140 to be approved? If you're doing processing, 15, 20 days, 30 days these days. If you're not doing that, then it can be anywhere from 4 months to 15 months. I think that's right. Let's see some other questions. If your case was filed in November, I think it depends, Khalid, on what kind of case it was. Like, I can't tell from what you're writing, what kind of case it'll be, or is it like the DOL stage, is it the USCIS stage, is it consular? But anything filed November 18th probably isn't that long in this government, I think. Anything filed November 18th is not that long of a wait these days. So, and someone, Abdul asked, who asked if there's any update on the visa bulletin. The visa bulletin moved ahead overall quite a bit this last time. And I anticipate, or suspect, or hope at least, that we'll see further movement coming up in February too. We should know that in a couple of weeks, or probably in a week actually, if the visa bulletin moves forward anymore. But it did seem to move forward quite a bit. What do you think was the cause of that? Like, if you had to guess, some of that forward movement.
Yeah, I mean, some of it may be the travel ban that we were talking about before. The other potential issue is USCIS inefficiency, and they're just not getting people sort of documentarily ready so that they're able to pursue their visas. So that maybe played a role as well.
Yeah. Someone asked about the public charge. So since most EB-3 unskilled positions, have minimum wages, some people are afraid that the embassy or USCIS might flag them as a public charge. I know in the past when we've seen that, we've encouraged the spouse to get a job We've encouraged them to have savings. And with both the spouse and the if they have a spouse, if they have a two people, a dependent, that usually overcomes the public charge issue. Not always, but usually it does. Have you seen any pushback or any public charge determinations recently in your time?
Yeah, we don't see, honestly, in our work here, the direct visa work that I do, we don't see a lot of public charge issues coming up, and certainly not any more than we would have seen pre-Trump.
Yeah. And I'll say that the same on our side too with EB-3. We've seen like a handful of public charges, but it hasn't been like a huge number, even with the public charge changes. Someone asked about 221G and not getting any response from that. That, unfortunately, is the biggest black hole in the State Department, is 221G. You have no idea why it's there. Sometimes they put it on for something related to personal policy. Sometimes the officer doesn't understand what's going on, and they just don't want to deal with it. 221G is really the black hole of the State Department. And so all you can really do is try to, do inquiries every once in a while. If you have an employer and you're waiting on an employment opportunity in America, your employer can do a congressional request to the State Department asking them, kind of what's going on. But for the most part, with 221G, the State Department has lots and lots of power to delay a case. And you just don't know what the reason is. And I think that's the ultimate problem. Now, you could go to Argo, or you could go to our services and ask us, and we can maybe help try to figure out what's the reason for the 221G. But there's really no way, bless you, there's really no way of knowing what that cause is. I'm sure you've seen the same with 221G.
Absolutely. No, it's I had one that went on for 5 years. So
yeah,
there's no rhyme or reason, unfortunately.
No, and sometimes it's just bad luck. Like I always tell people the story about how, like, when I was a visa officer, I would go and open up files, and it'd be 221G for 5, 6, 7 years, right? And I'm like, oh, hey, someone should probably issue this or do something with this case. It really was as simple as that. It was under somebody's desk. Nobody's looked at it in 6, 7 years, and that's how you do it. But you really have to keep pushing the government to go out and find the file. Like, go find the file, because a lot of times 221G is just based on no one has time to deal with it. Whether that be in Washington or in the embassy or consulate itself.
Yeah, no, the one lesson I learned in my years in the government is that the cases that stick around the longest are the cases that have some little element that make it impossible or difficult, not impossible, but difficult to decide up or down.
Right.
Because it's easy to say no.
Right.
And just to deny a case. It's relatively easy to do. Officers do it all the time. But if a case is unclear whether you should grant it or deny it, or something just strikes you as being unclear, those are the cases that can get jammed up forever. And so there is some real benefit in keeping the pressure on, so somebody remembers that they actually have to make a decision about that case, that they can't just sort of let it sit there for months and years.
Right. It really is like incumbent upon all of us to make those inquiries, to continue making those inquiries until we know more, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna go back up here and ask. So we talked a little bit about the public charge, the visa bulletin. If your date is 2022, will it be current in 2026? That's possible. I think the February-March visa bulletins will give us a lot of insight and to see how far things progress, especially with the travel bans. And again, here's another question. Like, and again, I've always said this on Facebook Lives, but if any comment that has anything about arrests and convictions, I'm staying away from those. You should probably go talk to a criminal lawyer or talk to me in person. I'm definitely not going to give advice on any kind of criminal conviction, anything on Facebook Live. So Someone did have a question about the EAD versus the EAD and AP as standalones versus the combo card. I think that might have started during your time at USCIS as director, right? Like doing the combo
Pretty
card?
sure, yeah, I'm pretty sure that we started doing that.
Yeah.
That was stopped, and I thought it was just.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, actually, I saw one very recently, so I guess they're still doing them.
Yeah, they're still doing them. They're still
Yeah.
doing them. Kind of why would they do one versus the other? Do you remember why they would pick one or the other?
Yeah, I think one of the issues I think is that there's always a sense that advanced parole, the AP is sort of abused. Where whereas the EAD adjudication is pretty straightforward. You're pretty much entitled to one. Pretty much everybody has an economic necessity to support their EAD. Whereas, really there's a lot of debate as to what the proper scope of advanced parole is. And so I think whenever USCIS gets in a sort of a mood where they're trying to be stricter, that's when they want to pay, perhaps closer attention to these AP requests and maybe can try to be a little more restrictive about those. And slower. They're slower to come than the EADs are.
Someone asks, is there an EB-3 process or any process that takes a year? No. There's no immigration process. None. Not even like the simple like marriage cases. They don't take a year. Nothing's going to take a year for immigration. And really, it isn't necessarily I think everyone always wants speed. Everyone wants it to be fast. But there is no fast, easy way for immigration. If there was, there probably wouldn't be a need for a lawyer or a USCIS or anything, right? So unfortunately, everything in immigration is going to take time. Now, what is taking, 3-4 years now, that might take 2-3 years down the road, right? Like immigration's constantly changing. But, given how complex immigration is now, we should expect things just to take a little bit of time. But I did want to ask you just really quickly, when you were at USCIS, what were some of the red flags or things about lawyers or consultants that would drive you guys to be kind of afraid or cause you to investigate a company further?
Yeah, I mean there was there's a lot of different things that happen, so it's hard to say that there's a pattern. There have been lawyers, particular lawyers, who come for one reason or another to be seen as engaged in a pattern of fraud, or suspected of engaging in a pattern of fraud. And when that happens, there is greater scrutiny both to those lawyers' cases when they're in the pipeline, when they're in adjudication, but also, and this is something to be very careful about, after your case has been approved. It's possible that your case might be reopened because of the mere fact that you're sort of with the wrong people. You're with the wrong a lawyer or a consultant who has come to draw some suspicion by USCIS. They do pay attention to those things, I think is the most important answer to your question. They track that stuff and they do take action if they have real concerns about a lawyer or consultant. That's different than, by the way, if they just don't like the consultant. If it's somebody who shows up at stakeholder meetings and asks really annoying questions.
Right.
They don't like that, but they don't do anything to people's applications because of that.
Right. Exactly right. And I really do think that that's something that people need to be really thinking about in this environment, is that this is not the time to trust companies or whatever that, are doing this on the cheap or on the fly or using ChatGPT or Notarios or any of that stuff. Immigration right now is incredibly difficult. It's incredibly complex, and you really need to have people who have a strong understanding and reputation, and have like the ability to back that up, right? Like no one, listen, I can't promise you that all of immigration will be smooth, no more than the former USCIS director can't promise you it's going to be smooth, but I promise you're going to get the best representation and the best service and the best that's out there in terms of navigating difficult situations. And not a lot of companies or law firms can necessarily say that. So I know that I've already run you over time. We have tons of questions. We're going to have to come back to these, and someone from our team will be reaching out. And maybe you and I can do another one of these later down the road.
Oh yeah, no, I love doing these. Great way to ring in the new year. Lots to talk about. I know we could keep going for a while.
Yeah, of course. Any final comments, thoughts for the new year?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I said a lot in the first Trump administration, I'm going to say it again now. It still remains the case that this is a country of opportunity, that every single day people are getting their cases approved, and they're getting their green cards, and they're getting their non-immigrant visas, and they're getting the opportunities that they came here looking for. So even though I said a bunch of really discouraging things, the fact is, net, there's still a lot of opportunity in our immigration system, and I want to be careful to not be overly discouraging because of that.
100%. I feel the same exact way. There's a ton of opportunity, a ton of ability of talented people to come to the United States, even with all these difficult times. So if you are thinking of joining up, or you're thinking about signing up with BDV, or thinking about using Argo services, now is the time to always start that stuff, because it might get harder, it might get easier, but at least you're in line and you've started the process. Yep. So thank you so much, former director.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Bye now.